What if I told you that beneath the still surface of a peaceful alpine lake, an entire village remains frozen in time? Not ancient ruins, not scattered stones, but real streets, real homes, real lives. This is the story of Graun, known in Italian as Curan Venosta, a small mountain village in South Tyrol, northern Italy, now hidden beneath the waters of Lago di Raetia, near the Austrian and Swiss borders. Today, only one structure breaks the surface, a lonely 14th century bell tower, rising from the middle of the lake. In winter, when the water freezes solid, visitors walk across the ice to stand beside it. In summer, it reflects perfectly in the calm water. Surrounded by snow-covered peaks, it looks peaceful, but that tower marks the heart of a community that was deliberately drowned. Before 1950, Graun was a quiet alpine village. Resting in a wide green valley, families farmed the land for generations. Cows grazed in high mountain pastures. Children played in narrow streets between stone houses. The church stood at the center of daily life, its bells echoing across the valley, marking time for a world that moves slowly, predictably, and with deep roots in tradition. After World War II, Europe was rebuilding at high speed. Industry expanded, cities grew, and the demand for electricity increased rapidly. Hydroelectric power was considered the future, efficient, modern, and reliable. Engineers looked at the valley where Graun stood and saw opportunity. Two nearby lakes could be merged into a larger reservoir, capable of generating significant energy. From a technical perspective, the project was brilliant. From a human perspective, it was devastating. Raising the dam would flood the entire village. Residents were informed compensation was offered. Officials described it as necessary progress, a sacrifice for the greater good. But for the people of Graun, this was not policy, it was their home, their history, their identity. Families protested, petitions were sent to authorities. Many believed the compensation was unfair and insufficient to replace farms and houses built over centuries. Some hoped the plan would fail. Others refused to believe the water would truly rise high enough to erase everything. But construction continued, and the decision had already been finalized. In 1950, the dam gates were closed. The water began to rise slowly. At first, fields disappeared beneath shallow layers. Roads turned to mud, basements flooded. Then ground floors vanished. Within weeks, entire homes were swallowed. Residents dismantled what they could, doors, beams, furniture, before locking their houses one final time. Knowing they would never return, most buildings were demolished before the final flooding to reduce debris. But the 14th century bell tower remained. As the reservoir filled, the tower stood firm, while the rest of the village disappeared beneath the surface. Today it rises from Lago di Raetia like a monument to what was lost, a vertical reminder of a community sacrificed in the name of progress. Above the water, the project succeeded. Hydroelectric turbines generated power for the region. Infrastructure improved, economic development followed. Tourism eventually transformed the lake into a destination known for its surreal beauty. Photographers capture the tower emerging from still water, unaware that beneath their reflections lie fragments of an entire town. Under the surface, foundations and traces of streets remain. Divers describe an eerie stillness, sediment-covered walls and outlines of pathways preserved by cold. Fresh water, it does not feel ancient. It feels paused, as if time stopped in 1950. The story of ground force is a difficult question. How much is progress worth when memory and identity are the price? For the former residents, the lake is not just water. It is a reminder. Many families were relocated to newly built houses nearby, but something intangible was lost. A village is more than structures. It is shared memory, familiar landscapes, routines repeated over generations. When ground disappeared, a way of life disappeared with it. Older inhabitants still tell stories of the day the water reached their doorsteps. They remember watching the valley slowly transform into a silent basin. Some describe the sound of wood cracking as buildings were dismantled. Others remember the heavy stillness when the bells rang for the last time, before the church was abandoned forever. Over time, nature adapted. Fish began to swim above old foundations. Sediment covered what once were kitchens and bedrooms. Seasons passed, snow fell, ice formed, the lake became part of the landscape, almost as if it had always been there. For new generations, the reservoir is normal. For the old ones, it is layered with ghosts. When the lake freezes in winter, something strange happens. People walk across the surface, unaware they are stepping above buried streets. The bell tower stands beside them, silent and unmoving in those moments. The boundary between past and present feels thin, as if the village is just beneath the ice waiting. Graun's story is not unique. Around the world, communities have been displaced for dams, highways, and industrial projects. Progress reshapes geography. It redraws maps. It calculates benefits in megawatts and economic output. But it rarely measures the emotional cost, the invisible weight carried by those who are forced to leave. If this story moved you, imagine how many others are still hidden beneath the surface of the world. There are places erased from maps, towns, abandoned cities swallowed by water. sand and time. And each one carries stories that deserve to be remembered. If you're fascinated by forgotten places, lost histories, and the silent traces humanity leaves behind, subscribe and become part of this journey. Because some stories don't disappear, they wait to be uncovered, and the next one is already beneath the surface. Feels peaceful, but silence can be deceptive, because this silence was not always here. There were once footsteps on cobblestone streets, doors opening at sunrise, smoke rising from chimneys in the cold alpine mornings, conversations echoing between houses that no longer exist. Imagine waking up one day and being told that everything around you, your home, your neighbors, your memories would soon disappear beneath water, not destroyed by nature, not lost in a sudden catastrophe, but slowly, deliberately, and officially erased. What do you take with you? What do you leave behind for the people of grown? The loss was not just physical, it was emotional. The land held generations of history. Weddings were celebrated there, children were baptized there, ancestors were buried there. The village was not simply a location, it was identity. And identity cannot be relocated as easily as furniture. Even today, decades later, descendants of the original families visit the lake and point toward the water, explaining to their children, "Our house was there, the bakery stood there, the school was right there." But there is nothing visible to confirm it, only water, only reflection, only the tower standing like a witness who refuses to forget. And maybe that is why this place feels different from other beautiful landscapes. There is a quiet tension here, a feeling that beneath the calm surface lies something unfinished, a reminder that progress can build and erase, that development can illuminate cities while darkening memories, and that sometimes the most powerful stories are not the ones we see, but the ones hidden just below,